Hello everybody and welcome to my icon review. I know it's a bit late, but I've got to do it. So yeah, I'm going to do an icon review and basically just review the ride and explain what happened, because I was at the VIP boarding thing, so it's a bit different to if you will have gone when it opened. So I just thought I'd kind of explain how that all worked in case you wanted to know, because I know a lot of people reviewing this ride will have done it, say, when it opened and not gone to the VIP event. So first of all, before I start the review, I want to raise a couple of important points which might be kind of concerning you about this ride and kind of like how it works. Now, Icon, if we're considering other roller coasters in the UK, it does not use the same type of launch as other coasters in the UK, and that's why you might be thinking it looks a little slow on the launch if you've seen previews of it, and I'm going to kind of explain why. So basically, roller coasters such as Rita and Stealth and even Velocity at Flamingo Land use what is known as a hydraulic launch, which basically is the car attaches to like a cable where it's then launched like hydraulically using kind of pressure. So then this cable is, this like catch car is attached to like a cable, and then it's got like a pulley wheel at the end that basically pulls it along, which happens because of pressure, whereas Icon's launch actually uses electromagnets. So basically like each part of the track, and there's like a metal pole which is like magnetized, and then the car has got like metal kind of plate things underneath. I don't know how to read. I'm probably confusing you, but basically how it works, in case I've got this a bit wrong, is basically the car is basically attracted to the magnets on the track, which is done in a way that means that it basically moves forward, as basically each part of the track is like magnetized and then demagnetized kind of thing. So now with all that done, let's go on to kind of how it all worked, how the ride, and kind of basically how this kind of VIP thing works. So basically we queued up like outside the Pleasure Beach. This was on Saturday the 19th, by the way. There was a few VIP days. I was at the first one. Like, I would have uploaded this earlier, but I've just not had time. I've had a lot going on at the moment. So basically we queued outside for about half an hour. This was like 8:30 in the morning, because the event itself was from 9 till 10 was when you could ride it. And then at around 9 they basically let everyone in. They let like a group in front of us in, then they let us in. So then we basically made our way down to the ride, and that's basically just kind of how that thing kind of worked. You had like boarding passes which you could buy, which basically you showed, and then they basically let you in to go ride it. So the ride itself then actually surprisingly has a bit of theming that we weren't really necessarily expecting. Now the ride itself is, I'm sure a lot of you will be aware of, but whereabouts it is kind of generally, but specifically it isn't just past Avalanche, like where that new bridge is. You can see it from there. You go over that bridge, you go past Avalanche up towards the big one, and between kind of Avalanche and the big one kind of area is where the entrance to Icon is. Now the ride itself looks a bit slow off ride. They do have a soundtrack for this ride, by the way, which plays in the area, in the queue, and in the station. So you kind of go into the queue, and now on to kind of like the theming. Kind of the outside of the building's like mildly themed. It's not necessarily theming, it's just kind of a well presented ride. There's a nice queue line. You've got some like themed paths that you may not be expecting. Kind of the paths are a bit themed. It's not a very long queue line. It basically just runs parallel to the two launches. This ride has two launches. I forgot to mention that. It is the UK's first double launch roller coaster, unless you're counting Revolution, but I don't think that launch is fast enough to be classed as a launch. No, that sounds silly, but Revolution at the same part kind of uses kind of a launch kind of mechanism thing. But anyway, so you kind of go through the queue. There's a few nice theme like archways and stuff. Then you go into the station itself, which is really well themed inside. You got like mirrors and kind of reflections like on the walls and that. You've kind of got the icon logo on the outside as well, I forgot to mention that. And this is where you kind of get on the train. It's a Mack Rides coaster, by the way, guys. And so you get on the train, it's got like a golden train, the track's like kind of a silvery colour, the train's gold. So you get on the train, which is basically, because of the type of ride it is, it has lap bars instead of over the shoulder, even though it does have inversions. But then you get on the train, you put your bags in this like locker system, which basically unlocks for your specific train. So it kind of like has 3 things because there's 3 trains, and then it like moves around to the right one when the train comes in. So like kind of an automatic thing. So get on the train, it moves forward a bit onto basically a place where it launches, and then basically it stops for a few seconds. You hear kind of the word icon. The train then launches. It's not a very powerful launch at first, but it does pick up some fair speeds when you get towards the end, so you get a bit of force. And then after that is kind of the most surprising thing of the ride, which is a tunnel which has mist, which when you go through basically sprays a load of mist. So then it covers kind of the surrounding area in a bit of mist for a few seconds, and you also get a bit wet with the mist. You then go up into like what is known as a top hat, which is basically like a hill, and then where you get a bit of airtime, which is basically where you push kind of out of your seat. That's one of the good bits of the rides. You then interact with a big one because you kind of dive down into what's known as an incline loop, which is basically a steeply banked kind of turn thing. Not as steep as I think some people expected, but yeah. And just to make you aware, this ride may look slow off ride, but on ride it does feel quite fast. Like for example, the launch, just the nature of the launch means it can't accelerate as fast as a hydraulic, but still it gets to about 49 miles per hour, I think it is, at the end of that first launch. So basically you continue around through some more bank turns before you go, because at this point I was kind of thinking, how's this going to keep you in? Because you got a lap bar, which, not going to lie, is quite tight, but literally above your legs is unsupported. Like, you can't lean forward because, like, the bar's there. Like, the top of your legs can't move. The bottoms are, like, dangling a bit because the seat's kind of raised. So then you kind of, but yeah, so you kind of go into the 0G roll, which is basically meant to make you feel weightless kind of thing. And you literally on that kind of pushed up into the bar, but you kind of feel weightless, well, as the thing suggests. And that's what makes this much better than the over the shoulder things. And the over the shoulder things you're quite restricted, but on this you're free. You can move about, you can put your hands up, it doesn't matter. I mean, I didn't, because it was kind of the first time kind of getting familiar with the ride, but kind of get this like floating sensation which you wouldn't really, like, I've done a 0G roll with an over the shoulder and I don't think it quite works. Yeah, you do feel a bit floaty, but not in comparison. And that's certainly one of the highlights of the ride. So then you kind of go around to the left, dive down into another mist tunnel into the second launch, which I must say is less powerful than the first. There's a chance that you, if you're used to kind of really high acceleration, you may not even notice this launch, but it does pick up a bit towards the end. It's quite a short launch, this one, because before you know it, you're up into what's known as an Immelman, I can't say it, loop, which is basically kind of a half a loop as we know it, with like a twist at the top. And that is the highlight of the ride. Even though it's not a 0G roll, you're actually pushed, you kind of get a bit of airtime on it, and it's even more kind of floaty than the 0G roll. You then kind of turn round, which is the best bit of the ride, which you can see on your screen now. Yeah, I forgot to mention, I do have kind of clips of these rides on the screen, like you will have seen the launch. So yeah, that's kind of the best bit of the ride actually, when you kind of pulled down out of that loop, as you would have just seen. Yeah, it's a brilliant part of the ride. You really do get some force, and then you kind of got a bit of a disorientating bit of the ride. Oh, again on that loop you do feel pushed up against that lap bar. And yeah, that's the best bit. Then you have a series of turns, which can be quite disorientating because it's kind of to the left, to the right. This is the faster bit of the ride, by the way. And there's actually some quite intense helixes towards the end of the rides. It's actually a more intense ride than it looks. There's not many rides that I'd say are more intense than they look. Most look a lot worse than they actually are. I think the only ride that I'd say was actually more intense than it looked was actually Infusion at the same park. But yeah, it's the same with Icon. It's more intense than it looks. It looks quite slow, but when you're on it, you feel that 50 miles an hour odds. It's just that type of ride. And by the way, the second launch is 52 miles per hour, so slightly faster, which is why that second launch is slightly faster in itself. So anyway, you basically got a few bank turns after that, a few airtime hills. You then coming back into the brakes, round into the station, and yeah, that is the end of that ride. And to summarise, yes, it is the UK's best roller coaster, and actually my top roller coaster, better than Expedition Everest at Walt Disney World. So there you go. That is my number one coaster. No, I haven't been on many roller coasters outside the country, but yeah. So yeah, after that you kind of go into kind of the shop. You go up the exit into the shop where you've got Icon merchandise. You can also purchase a picture before you get to that shop, and yeah, you kind of come out, and that's kind of the end of the ride. So hope you enjoyed the review, guys. Stay tuned for more on this channel. This is going to be, I'm going to explain what's happening with this channel in a few weeks, but I know I said a lot earlier that there's going to be more happening, and this time I mean it. This is going to play a big part this channel soon. This is probably going to be my first channel, and I'll kind of explain how that's working soon. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.